Hi, welcome back to Soul Light Reflections. I wanted to share with you a pretty short episode, but very impactful and hopefully very helpful for your journey. I want to talk about grounding practices, why they're important, and I want to give you a bunch of ideas for quick practices that you can do without needing anything specific, and if you only have like 30 to 60 seconds to do it. First, I want to give an example of when one might use the grounding practices that I'm going to share with you. We all have moments and experiences in life where we feel triggered, we feel overwhelmed, we feel anxious, we feel disconnected, we feel apathetic, we feel frustrated, and a lot of times that can pull us into our shadow self, which is the parts of ourself that are there and aren't necessarily good by the traditional standard. I do think that your shadow self is a good thing to an extent because we can learn a lot from it, but I'm talking about any situation where that part of yourself that you don't necessarily like, the anxious part, the overwhelmed part, the rude part, whatever it is, comes out. For example, you have a big presentation or a meeting or something coming up and your mind is like racing and you need to calm down. Or you're psyching yourself up for a really big conversation and you think it's going to be really impactful in your relationship. So the practices that I'm going to go over are helpful during stressful situations, like when your emotions are running high and you like really need to regain composure. These can be really good tools to use anytime you feel like you're stuck in overthinking, or even like it doesn't necessarily have to be in those times of like fight or flight, right? It can also be in times of just being tired, like needing to unwind, wanting to connect with your body and your mind and your soul. Needing just a little bit of confidence boost, or needing to build patience within yourself. So these grounding techniques help you to create space between you and the stressor so that rather than reacting, you can respond to the situation. You can respond in a calm manner and mindfully. These practices are beneficial because they quickly bring you back to the present moment. They allow you to reduce that stress and anxiety and that like initial overwhelm that can come from any of the things that I previously gave as examples. And so during these grounding practices that I'll share with you, we typically focus on simple sensations like breathing or touch, tactile, or movement, proprioceptive. And then it allows you to interrupt the thoughts and the feelings that are racing. You start to shift your awareness from mental overwhelm and like your external environment, and you allow yourself to physically relate to the present moment and separate yourself from that. It essentially activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body. It lowers that cortisol. It creates that sense of safety, of calm, of peace, of centeredness. And in literally 30 to 60 seconds, the practices that I'll share with you kind of let you have like a reset for the mind. And then we can get back to the version of ourselves throughout the whole rest of our day that we actually want to show up as. And when we show up as our authentic, genuine, higher light self, we create that ripple effect. I feel like I've talked about the ripple effect in like every episode. I feel like I should rename my podcast Ripple Effect, because when we are using these simple grounding practices throughout every single day, we start to respond versus react to the environment, the people, the experiences around us. Oh my God, you show up as such a better, even more beautiful, radiant being. And the people around you can't help but feel that. And then they want to start living in that way too. So sometimes I like to say, if for some reason you can't find it within yourself to do all these things for yourself so that you can feel better internally, maybe just focus on that ripple effect and how you affect all of the close people in your life, your children, your parents, your friends, whoever it is that you're close to. And it strengthens their own relationship with themselves, and it strengthens their ability to show up as their best selves, which I mean, you ultimately benefit from as well. But if for some reason you can't do it for yourself, do it for them. Do it so that they can feel better, and then you all can feel better as a result. So without further ado, here are some really simple, very short grounding practices that you don't need like a bunch of tools or anything for. I could do a whole other episode on good ways to regulate your nervous system. Everyone's got something different, right? But this is about very simple 30 to 60 second grounding practices. Number one, my absolute favorite, the one I'm always going back to, is putting your bare feet to the earth. Take your shoes off, take your socks off, go to grass or dirt or mud or whatever you can find, obviously within reason. Stick your feet to the earth. It will literally, especially when paired with one or two or more of the other practices that I'll share with you, oh my God, it is so powerful. I feel like every time I am putting my bare feet to the earth and I'm practicing box breathing and I'm practicing the 3x3, which I'll talk about both of those in a moment, I can literally feel, not just visualize, but feel the roots coming from my feet straight down into the earth and the connection back and forth. I mean, it is wild. If you haven't done it, if you don't regularly do it, put those bare feet to earth, baby. The next one is box breathing. So I just talked about this one. This one's pretty simple. The reason it's called box breathing is because you've got 4 sides. You've got the breathing in, holding, breathing out, and holding. So across the top of this box, you could visualize a square right in front of you. Across the top is breathing in for 4 seconds. As you go down one side, you're holding for 4 seconds. As you're going across the bottom, you're breathing out for 4 seconds. And as you're going up the other side, holding for 4 seconds. So it goes across, 4 seconds in, down, 4 second hold, across, 4 second out, up, 4 second hold. And I always recommend doing at least 3 deep breaths and like really slow. The reason it's 4 seconds is because hopefully, everyone always rushes through counting, especially with breathing, right? It's hard to take a moment and actually take a deep breath. But really practice it and try to go as slow as you can, even slower than you might think. The next one is 3x3. So there is this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding practice that has been shared a lot within like the anxiety and depression community, but I really like 3x3 because the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is like 5 things. I'm gonna get this wrong. It's basically like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 things that you can see, feel, smell, taste, and hear. And I feel like as it goes on and you have to get like to the things you can taste or the things you can smell, sometimes it's a little bit challenging because those are a little bit harder to define. And sometimes we're not really in a place with lots of smells or, you don't have a specific taste in your mouth. So to me, I really like 3x3 because I don't like any sort of grounding practice to ever feel like a test. It should never feel like, oh my God, I'm going to do it wrong. I want you, as you're listening to this, to choose the practices in here that like you're thinking, oh, that's easy. I could easily do that. I don't want it to be like, oh, am I going to remember it right? Am I going to do it right? Should I check in? No, do the ones that feel like, oh, hell yeah, that's easy. I could take 30 seconds to do that. So the reason I like the 3x3, coming back to it, is that it's only 3 things you can see, 3 things you can touch or feel, and then 3 things you can hear. Because I feel like in general, those 3 senses are almost always being stimulated at the same time. So that's why I really like the 3x3. And then you can do that as many times as you want as well. Maybe you're like outside and you walk to one area and then you notice a 3x3 of one area. And then you walk down the street and you notice another area that you could do a new 3x3, right? So you can come back to this as many times as you want as you're working on grounding. Another one is very slowly sipping a beverage, like observing the liquid at each stage. So feeling it touch your lips and your tongue, feel like swirling it around in your mouth, like feeling it as it goes down your throat. Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it sweet? Is it maybe a little bit like salty or spicy or herby or whatever you can find, floral, and start really observing during every sip that you take. Next one is repeating affirmations. So simply choose a positive affirmation. Maybe it's I'm safe in this body, or I am grounded where I am. And then just repeat it silently, or highly recommend if you're in a space where you feel comfortable doing so, do it out loud a few times to like really anchor yourself down. I guess I should have gone over this next one right after the first one, which is nature connection. Like finding a way to touch like a plant or a tree or the ground or a flower, like whatever you can find. Try to like literally connect with nature through your hands, not just your feet. Now, sometimes that nature connection might not look like literally going outside and like hugging a tree, which I'm all for as well. Maybe it looks like you have a bunch of plants in your apartment and you can like simply go feel one of the leaves on one of your plants and just take a moment. Or maybe watering your plants in that moment seems like it would be grounding and nourishing and peaceful for your system. It's almost like a walking meditation. Next one is kind of similar. So it's focusing on your tactile senses, holding a small object such as like a piece of fabric or a stone or even a fidget, like something that you have, and focusing on its texture, its weight, its temperature, its feel, its color, like focusing on all of the little details. Is it rough? Is it firm? Focusing on all of the little details about this object for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe longer. Maybe it turns into more of like a meditative state versus just simply grounding. Next one is movement. Stand up, just stretch your arms overhead. You don't have to like go crazy and dance around like an idiot like I do. You could literally just do like a big stretch overhead and then reach your hands down to your toes and stretch the back of your legs, roll your shoulders around, like bringing your hands down, shaking out any tension in your hands and your legs. Or maybe it does look like dancing around like a freak for 30 seconds, right? Like put on your favorite breakdown of a song and just go for it. Next one is same, but different. Taking a moment to just send some compassion inward and just simply placing your hand on your heart, one hand or both hands, whatever feels more comfortable, and take a really deep breath. Feel how warm your hands feel on your chest. Feel the rise and fall of your chest as you take deep breaths, and then focus on that heartbeat. Is it going fast? Is it going slow? Can you really feel it? Can you hear it? Next one is finger tapping. So you're literally just gently tapping each finger against your thumb, just one by one. You can go back and forth, or you can do it the same way each time. And you could also try tapping like on a surface, but I like tapping my thumb to my finger just because you get that like feedback a little bit more. Now, this one I feel like some of us kind of do subconsciously when we're like nervous or something. So if that's you, don't use it as a grounding practice if you know it's kind of like your nervous tick. Or you could try it anyway and then try just like really slowing yourself down, kind of like we get really conscious and try to slow our breath when we're breathing, doing the same. Or you could like pair it with the breathing. Is actually, I'm like tapping my fingers right now like, oh, you could definitely pair some deep breathing with this. Another one that has to do with your hands, since we're on all the hands, is pushing your palms together or squeezing and like making fists, like whatever feels more aligned for you. I like pushing my hands together because I like to do it right in front of my chest and picture like that I am like with both hands grabbing this like tension, this stress, this anxiety, this overwhelm, this frustration, whatever's living within my body. And I feel like I'm like grabbing it from the center of my chest and I'm just like pressing it and like squeezing it till it pops. Almost like you're holding like a big balloon full of water in between your hands. You're trying to pop it. And then finally it does pop. And then you get to just like feel that all of those lower vibrational feelings just oozing out. Next one is counting your breaths. And so I don't just mean counting along with your breaths like the box breathing that I talked about. I am talking about taking deep breaths in and out, but counting after each breath. So you breathe in, you breathe out, you say 1. You breathe in, you breathe out, you say 2. And then see just how many you can get to until that stress starts melting away, or you start not even thinking about the thing that was so irritating. And instead you're focusing on presence and breathing. And I know people hate hearing like, just breathe when you're frustrated, but there's a reason for it. Like it really does have the absolute power to completely reset your nervous system and allow you to respond rather than react to a situation or a person or a place. Okay, I want to go back to the hands again, which is rubbing the hands together. So maybe that like balloon pop visual didn't really work for you. You're still feeling a little bit overwhelmed, anxious. Try rubbing your hands together and picturing yourself like building up all of this good white light, bright energy within your palms. And then as you slowly pull them away, it gets bigger and bigger. And that's this like I picture almost like, have you ever seen those bubbles? It's like an actual bubble that you blow and then they fill it with smoke. I picture that, and you're like creating this like beautiful white energy that's bright and shiny, and you pull it apart as you pull your hands apart, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and then you get to step within that bubble, and then it pops, and then all of that light bright energy is just continuing to surround you even as that bubble popped and is gone. Next one is so freaking good for your internal system, which is just humming quietly for like a few seconds. Just feel that vibration in your chest and your throat. And oh my God, it sounds ridiculous, but it is so underrated. I recently started practicing this, very recently, because I was always like, okay, I know that like singing sometimes makes you feel better, but literally just there's a reason why chanting and humming are such a huge part of things like yoga, of Buddhism, of lots of other religious and philosophies around the world, because it is so regulating for the body. And again, is free, doesn't take much time at all. It could literally take a few seconds. You don't even have to go for a full 30 on that one. Next one that I want to shout out my girl Bianca Spears in Sydney, Australia for is smiling or laughing and just doing it for 10 seconds. Even if you don't feel like it could be literally the worst trigger ever, literally still smile and try to laugh, because that can create this positive mental shift by releasing all of these like really good, feel good hormones and chemicals within your body. Guaranteed within 10 seconds, you're already going to feel like at least 10% better. My friend Bianca, like I just mentioned in a little shout out, she is a laughter coach. And when I very first heard about her through my other friend, Lindsay, I was like, wait, what? I need to meet this woman. This sounds amazing. And I've never heard of that before. And through knowing her, oh my God, I could go on forever about you, girl. She's so inspiring. And from the moment we met on Zoom, because she's in Australia, we just instantly clicked and we're like, oh my God, we're going to be friends. And it's not like you're bypassing the hard, the tough, right? I'm not saying that like this is a fix all. This is just like, if you need to snap yourself out of it in a situation, this really can help to simply smile and laugh and kind of in that exact moment, fake it till you make it mentally until you're at a space where you can healthily handle whatever the thing that triggered you was. Next one is putting something in your mouth, maybe like putting gum in your mouth or something that, not necessarily something like a snack, like cookies or chips or something, because although yes, like the crunch from that can create some proprioceptive feedback within your mouth and your receptors, blah, blah, blah. That could be really mindless and turn into a whole other thing, right? So I'm talking something that like maybe one of those hard candies or a mint or something that you can put in your mouth that's gonna like kind of stay there for a while. And that can allow you to bring awareness back to your body and focus on the taste and the texture and what's going on in your mouth versus the thing that kind of set your nervous system off. Second to last one is muscle tensing and releasing. This is one that as a pediatric occupational therapist, I actually have practiced with kids so many times and it seriously works so well. So basically you start by tensing a certain group of muscles, like maybe your fists or your arms or your legs or your toes, and then you start going throughout the rest of your body. So if you want to be a little bit like sporadic, chaotic, cutesy, you can always just start at a random place and then start slowly going through the rest of your parts of your body to tense them with the other muscles. Or you could start top or bottom. So like top to bottom or bottom to top. So you could start at your toes and go to your legs and go to your thighs and go to your core and then up to your chest, da, da, da. Or you could start at the top and like clench your jaw and your eyes shut and then roll down to your shoulders and your neck and then start going down. So depends on if you want to be a little chaotic or not. It could be a little bit like a fun game actually as a grounding practice to start at a random spot. Like let's say I started at my quads and then I was like, okay, now I'm going to tighten my calves. Okay, now I'm going to tighten my shoulders. Okay, now I'm going to tighten my jaw. Because then you're like, okay, wait, am I actually getting all of the parts? And as you're doing this, you're taking your brain completely off of whatever the thing was that made you feel frustrated or overwhelmed, because there's too much to think about in like, what muscles am I supposed to tighten next to even be worried about that? And then of course, on the other side, you release, right? So you're like holding for a few seconds at a time. I feel like I totally forgot to mention that at first. But anyway, the point there is noticing the contrast between the tension and the relaxation. And I always tell when I'm working with kids, I tell them to focus on creating your body like a board. And then as you release and breathe out, you're like picturing yourself as a puddle melting. And like, I mean, if you want to be dramatic, again, dramatic, chaotic about it, melt yourself into a fucking puddle on the ground. Fucking go for it. That's what I literally do with my kids. Not my kids, but the kids that I work with sometimes. And that can be really fun, and it can be silly, and silliness, playful embodiment takes you out of that triggered emotional state and allows you to come back to your body in the present moment. So throwing that out there. Okay, very last one. If none of these worked for you, fine, whatever. Simply count backward from 10 to 1. Or you know what? Let's make it 11 to 1 because angel numbers, 11, 1, like, come on, duh. So count backwards from 11 to 1. Coming back to the beginning of this episode, this goes really well with the putting your bare feet to the earth. So start at 11 and then maybe if you're walking, take 2 steps for every count and then just count all the way down to 1. And then you can repeat this and any of these other ones as many times as you need. Or again, you can interchange them however you need in order to find that relief and move on with the rest of, that moment or that hour or that day. Let me know which of these really stuck out at you, which ones you're excited to practice, which ones you already practice. I fucking love hearing from you guys. You don't understand. So thank you to all of you who have reached out. I hope that this episode, as always, is really helpful and insightful. Until next time, keep shining, keep aligning, and remember, you are worthy and you are beautiful. Bye.